The media fixates on guns every time there's a tragedy involved.
Right. Some more so than others.
But they never highlight how many lives guns save every year. Is this the bias against guns?
Well,
that
in
you
fact,
write
that's
about?
one reason why I wrote that book. And I talk about some in More Guns, Less Crime, too. But, you know, when was the last time you watched the national evening news and heard a story about somebody using their gun to protect themselves or protect somebody else? I mean, I think it just almost never occurs. And I tried to, in the bias against guns, I tried to systematically go through and just document how the media covered gun crimes versus defensive gun uses, and it's incredibly lopsided. And I think it has a real impact on people's perceptions about the costs and benefits of guns. If you only hear about the costs, the bad things that happen, and never hear about the benefits, it can't do anything but affect people's perceptions about the costs and benefits of guns. And that affects whether they want to let others own guns or not. You know, some of it I think is understandable on the part of the media, but a lot of it's not. You know, I think relatively few people know that over a quarter of the public school shootings in the United States have been stopped by citizens with guns before uniformed police were able to arrive. You know, there's a number of these multiple victim public shootings and other cases that have been stopped by citizens. And yet, even when that event itself gets a huge amount of news coverage, how it was stopped when a civilian stops it gets virtually no coverage as part of the story. You know, I think those are kind of hard things to explain.
So there's the correlation then, more guns, less crime.
Yeah, I think so very strongly. I mean, one of the things, in the new third edition of More Guns, Less Crime, one of the things I do is I look at crime rates around the world after we've had gun bans. You know, Americans are familiar with gun bans in Washington, D.C. and Chicago, and they know how murder rates increased after the bans went into effect. And a few people might know how in Washington, D.C., after the Supreme Court struck down the gun lock law and the gun ban here, how murder rates through July of this year had fallen by 36%, which is a huge drop in 2 years. But they think somehow it's different in the rest of the world when you have gun bans. In fact, that's the same way it happens around the world when you have gun bans. I can't find a place around the world that we have crime data before and after the ban where murder rates fell after the ban occurred. You know, whether it's England or whether it's Ireland or Jamaica, you know, so the advocates of gun bans in the United States have said, well, you know, it's not really a fair test with regard to the Washington, D.C. gun ban or Chicago gun ban. We kind of knew they were going to fail because unless you have a ban every place in the country, then criminals can go to Virginia or Maryland or other parts of Illinois and get their guns and then go and commit crimes. Well, the problem is, first of all, it doesn't explain why murder rates increased. Secondly, as I say, you can look around the world. There are plenty of countries which have had bans over the entire country. You have island nations that have had bans. They can't go and blame some nearby neighbor for their gun problem. And yet, in neither of those cases, you see increases in murder rates, increases in violent crime after the bans have been instituted. And I think at some point, it has to raise questions in people's minds. You know, shouldn't you at least see a few places where murder rates fall after a ban's gone into effect? And the basic issue here is that when you go and you ban guns, you have to ask yourself, who's most likely to obey the law? If it's basically the good, law-abiding citizens who turn in their guns, so you disarm them relative to the criminals, then rather than seeing reductions in violent crime, you can actually go and see increases.